As a young boy, I struggled with school. At times I found it unbearable and overwhelming. What was wrong with me? Today I still look back at that boy and give him a big hug as he was lost in the world of education. He did not give up on himself, even though many did. Is education meeting the needs of dyslexic students? Is the education system getting it right for each and every student?
Hi, I'm Sam McGovern and I'm dyslexic. I kind of felt like afterwards I had to find out who I was myself, because I think you learn a lot about yourself when you start to understand your dyslexia and you know why you do certain things, and you're like, oh, that's because I'm dyslexic, isn't it? Like, I can understand now, whereas before I was just like, I'm just dumb and that's it.
I'm Hamish and I'm dyslexic.
My name's Ian McKinnon and I'm a writer. My education at school was horrific.
Embarrassment, fear about going to school. When my teacher asked me to go up in front of the whole class and read an essay from a book, and all of them had to do that. When I went up there, it was just a blur. It was just a jungle of words and I couldn't do it. So I'm standing there not able to do it. And now they're starting to cough and snigger in the class. And the teacher gets upset. And she comes up and announces to the class that Jackie Stewart is dumb, is stupid and is thick. Go back to your seat. Now that antagonises the subject as it did me, but it also tells the other folk in the room that you're stupid, dumb and thick. Absolutely almost criminal for that to happen. So it wasn't a good upbringing for me at school.
I remember my first memory of school was crying at the school gates on the way in on my very first day, and school did nothing to dispel that for me. Very quickly I was identified as being slow. I was in the remedial reading groups, and I can remember going from turquoise to teal in my little reading and writing book and being the only person in that group in my entire class. The report card going back from the school telling that Ian was lazy and Ian had difficulty grasping things, and my school life was just terrible, because at the end of the day you're at school to learn things, and they weren't teaching me anything at school that was useful to me. They weren't teaching me anything that I could actually use. And so because I couldn't write properly and I couldn't spell, I get shunted to the back of the class and basically ignored. I can remember getting sent off to various other remedial classes to practice my handwriting, to practice spelling. And it was just utterly futile. You know, there's no amount of smacking it into you that is going to get you to remember how to spell a word when you're dyslexic. And I look back now at my poor dad. My dad would sit there for hours with me, going over my spelling homework, and he'd say, right, okay, you've got this word to spell. Can you spell it? And I would give it an attempt and I'd fail. And I'd give it an attempt and I'd fail. And I would keep on going. And the patience my father had was just unbelievable. I can still remember him sitting there. And eventually either I would get lucky or he would give up. But certainly primary school was very much a back of the class. You're not one of the smart kids. You're not very clever. You're holding people back sort of idea. And if only you tried harder, if you tried how to spell, if you tried how to write nicely. And all of this was utterly beyond me. I just couldn't do it. And you know, at the end of the day, being told that I was stupid, you know, I thought to myself, well, I obviously am. You know, these people are educational professionals. Who am I as an 8-year-old boy to disagree with that concept?
I was diagnosed in P4-5, but they'd sort of been using the word dyslexic since P3, I think. The test I did just felt like one of the normal things I did, and I think I did it over 2 days or 2 parts, and some of the stuff I found easy and other stuff I found hard in the test. After I was diagnosed with dyslexia, there was less pressure on me to actually learn to read, and more just like teaching me the information I actually needed to know. After I was diagnosed, it was better, but even before I was diagnosed, I still got a lot of help, and the only bits I didn't like was the reading and writing. So the being registered with dyslexia helped me with the reading and writing and with understanding it myself. The sort of immediate reaction when I was told I was dyslexic, I was upset, but then when I actually learned more about it and who else had been dyslexic through history, I was really excited to learn more about it, and it was an amazing experience. I felt I was different, but I thought that it was sort of like just a normal, I felt I was different, but I felt that sort of everybody was different. At the start of school, I sort of came at the same rate as everybody else, but sort of as we moved on, I found it got harder and harder compared to what everybody else was doing, and I found that I was lagging further and further behind. I think it was in P3 when I was at a completely different level, everybody else had moved on and I wasn't, and I felt that there was something wrong or something not happening that should have been happening. Well, my teacher was really nice. All my teachers have been really nice all the way through school, and the bit I always found awkward with is when we'd have the spelling rule, and the spelling rule is today SH, and everybody would say as many words as they could think of with SH, and you just put your hand up when you thought of one. And I always felt weird because I could never think of one. I personally have never, nobody's ever made me feel stupid, but I think that's sort of more because I've had amazing teachers and I've had amazing friends. Though I think it would be very easy for someone if they wanted me to.
I wasn't diagnosed until I was 15, but I think I knew something was wrong when I was maybe 7 or 8. And I could see myself falling behind everyone. And I remember telling my mum over and over again, there's something wrong, I'm not getting this because of there is something wrong here. And I mean, my mum was just kind of oh, Sam, you're just being silly, you'll get there eventually. But I remember, I used to sit in the kitchen and my mum had printed out all these little words and she'd make me read them out to her and stuff, and they were easy words and I can hear them inside my head, and I know what they sound like, and then you try and get them out and you just can't, and people get annoyed at you and stuff, and you're oh. So yeah, I think it was maybe about 7 or 8 when she started using the cards and stuff like that. Yep. And I started falling behind kind of just generally in school, especially with reading and writing. I would say I was picked on more by the teachers, just kind of, not picked on, not they made fun of me, more they kind of told me that I wasn't good enough and I wouldn't amount to anything, kind of stuff like that, and talking down to me a lot.
Still horrendous.
Yeah.
To a young
well,
person.
I mean, when did I leave high school? I only left high school 3-4 years ago. Yeah. So I mean, saying stuff like that 3-4 years ago is still ridiculous.
Look what you've achieved already, Sam. You can tell people. I mean, you've been on you've been down to London working for a special effects company.
I mean, I've made over 10 films since leaving school. I've put on around about 5 art exhibitions in and around Dundee. I'm currently getting a degree in animation and stuff. So I mean, it's not that I can't do these things. It's that the education system hasn't been able to cater to my learning difficulty.
Yeah, and so the teachers were telling you that you would.
That I wouldn't be anything. I wouldn't be able to achieve. I wouldn't be able to go to university and do all the things that I wanted to do because I wasn't getting on at school. And obviously this was before I'd been diagnosed. I mean, even then there was only 4 months of me actually being in school when I had been diagnosed, and I don't know if I could really tell the difference between my teacher's behaviour. To be honest, I don't even know if my teachers had been told. I knew that my English teacher knew, but I don't know if the rest of them had been told or not. Yeah.
I don't know, like it was a difficult time because I was struggling a lot kind of with my mental health at the time as well, and a lot of that was to do with the dyslexia. A lot of it was social anxiety, and that I wasn't going to be able to get on with my life because I was dyslexic, and that made me feel even worse than I was already feeling. But to be honest, I think Dyslexia Scotland had been a big part of what's made me kind of more embrace the dyslexia and like to speak to people about it and like to tell people and help people. Rather than kind of seeing myself as this person who just can't do anything.
When I went to university the first time I did my psychology degree, one of the lecturers spotted me as being dyslexic, and boom, from that point onwards I got massive amount of support. They have their own learning support unit. I got introduced to them. I got access to materials and rooms and so on that other pupils didn't get because I was dyslexic. I got equipment from the university and the rest of it that helped me through it. But going and doing the master's degree, even though one of the lecturers on the course was supposed to be the advocate for learning, they had no concept of what to do to help somebody who's dyslexic. Not being able to read things at a normal pace and being on a course that requires a lot of reading, I was asking for the course material up front. So can you tell me what books we're going to be reading so that I've got a head start? Are these books available as audiobooks? Are these books even available on Kindle or some other electronic format where you can do text-to-speech? And the thing was that there had been no forethought into this whatsoever. And simply being told, oh, we're doing this book next week and here's a photocopy of the pages we're doing, just was somewhat startling. Having had that difficulty in school myself, having seen what the help you could get as a dyslexic was like when I first did my degree, having at that point now seen what was being done for my little boy who was in primary school to help his education. Here I am doing a master's degree in something with people who should at this point be aware of how to help people with dyslexia, and having to fight and struggle for everything along the way. That I found very annoying. I spent most of my time on that course complaining or reading or trying to catch up on the reading because I wasn't being supported in the way that I would have expected by that point. So being dyslexic, I don't read a lot. Until the last couple of years, I maybe read 1, 2, 3 books a year and that was it. The invention of things like Audible and text-to-speech has vastly changed the number of books I actually get through. During my university course, I must have read about 15, 20 novels, and all of that was through text-to-speech or some sort of audio version of the novel, because it was just too slow for me to try and read stuff conventionally. It's a very long and circuitous route, a dyslexic person becoming a writer. If you'd have spoken to my English teacher at high school then, it was never an option. But it's the imagination thing, and it's kind of a therapy as well. I've been writing for years with no hope of getting published just because I was enjoying doing it. And eventually I ended up in a position where I had a lot more time than I expected, so I was able to write a lot more than I'd done previously. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'll try and get this book published. And being dyslexic, you have that three-dimensional planning that most people don't have access to. And so you start to build around a concept and explore it and go into a lot more detail. And that's the sort of thing that a writer needs to do. When they're building a world, they need to be able to inhabit that world. They need to have to work out what are the outcomes of this imaginary state. So if you've done anything like mind mapping, this plays in fantastically to the strengths of a dyslexic. This is something that we do in our own heads naturally. We can manipulate events in time and space far more readily than normal people can do.
Well, when I've watched a movie or read a book, I can memorise it pretty much instantly. Like, I won't memorise the word for word, but I'll work out the plot line. I can memorise the plot line really quickly, like only complicated stuff. Do I need to reread like Lord of the Rings or War and Peace? They're sort of the ones that I'd actually need to look over again. But things like Harry Potter, I can read again because they're enjoyable, but I don't get anything new out of them. Well, I use technology a lot, and I use lots of apps and software that basically means it doesn't matter if I can't read or write. And I feel that what my school did was amazing, was send me everything digitally and that I needed. And I feel schools, if they were just less text-based, it would be a much better experience.
I'm Ashley Abercrombie. I'm the principal teacher of St Roch's Primary and Deaf School in Glasgow.
How do teachers learn about dyslexia in general in schools and training to be a teacher, and just generally how do they?
It starts off in initial teacher education, and that was identified as an area that needed to be developed, and further input was required at an earlier stage for teachers. So within university courses, teachers have inputs through their literacy modules. In Glasgow we have the Glasgow Dyslexia Support Service, and that's a team of staff who are designated to go out into schools and support teachers and support teacher training further.
What happens in the classroom after the kids have been identified?
Within the classroom, as I said, we wouldn't wait until the child has been identified as being dyslexic, but when there are difficulties that flag up within the classroom, the class teacher would then seek advice from senior leadership, seek advice from parents as well, just to make sure that those difficulties are being seen at home as well. From that and from the evidence that's gathered, a programme of work would be put in place. In Glasgow we use the Getting Started pack, which is a package that helps support children who have dyslexic type difficulties to overlearn some of the key phonological awareness and phonics activities that would have formed their literacy development in the early years as well.
Do all schools in Scotland have systems for assessing and supporting dyslexic pupils?
All schools in our authority follow the same process, although I understand in other authorities there will be different systems. Fundamentally, that across Glasgow it's the same, that we recognise, monitor, plan and implement the support for the child, and that continuous monitoring of progress is vital. For Glasgow we can request specific support from the Dyslexia Support Service, and again the training from them, which is provided to staff within a coaching and context package, has been invaluable, particularly to impacting on staff practice and changing staff mindset and staff practice towards supporting learners with dyslexia or with general literacy difficulties. The Addressing Dyslexia Toolkit is an invaluable resource as well for Scottish teachers. Being able to access that online really helps teachers to identify certain aspects within literacy learning that they might be flagging up within their class with particular learners, and it gives them the clear next steps of how to carry that process forward. Any child who is having difficulties, particularly with literacy and numeracy as well, they do develop coping mechanisms to try and hide their difficulties as well, because again there's obviously a peer pressure element of that as well, that they might not want to come forward and say that they're finding a particular thing difficult. What's important is that teachers are consistently tracking and monitoring pupil progress and having learning conversations with learners, so that they can have that conversation where they grasp the verbal understanding from the child, rather than depending on written work, and making sure that we're digging deeper to make sure that children do have a sound understanding of what's being taught. We encourage reading for enjoyment through a variety of means, whether that's printed text or digital text. ICT is making great inroads for our children, and I think that's a significant aspect which has helped to develop learners' confidence in reading, and again just providing that wider access for them as well, through digital text, through having software read the text back as well. There's no limitations on children accessing text at the minute.
What kind of stuff do you use? Do you use iPads or screen readers?
We use iPads, and we have our PCs as well. In Glasgow we have two Assistive Technologies, Ivona Reader and WordTalk as well. And the Avona Reader is one where you could highlight any document and it reads it back to you in a regional accent as well. And the Word Talk is a programme where it helps the child write their own work as well, so writing stories then becomes more productive for the child. They produce a great piece of work at the end of it, and again there's not that stress to rely on their working memory to remember how to spell or sentence structure as well.
So do you see any strengths in dyslexic kids and ones into secondary school as well as they get older?
I think with all our children we obviously want to see everyone's strengths. For dyslexic children, for children that I've worked with, creativity is a big aspect that comes through. They are very creative musically and through expressive arts as well, through drawing and things like that. So I would say that is a particular strength that I've noticed coming through, but I wouldn't like to generalise to say all dyslexic children are good at art or all good dyslexic children are creative. There are children whom I've worked with who are fantastic. Their creativity in terms of their writing, their imagination is absolutely fantastic. But again, it's just about helping them to develop the skills to get that down onto paper, or to use other methods like digital technology to create film, to create comics, and looking for different avenues to explore that and not to try to always force it down a written pathway.
I feel there aren't actually any problems with being dyslexic itself, but I feel we live in a text-based world, and that's the problem, rather than actually being dyslexic being the problem. Yeah, but I have an amazing idea that nobody else has thought of, and just because I've sort of come at the problem in a completely different way, I've felt really empowered and like, you know, it's sort of all the struggles have really paid off. Well, I'm really proud of being dyslexic because it's part of me and it gives me great ideas and it's how I learn, and it's a part of me that I'm proud of and that I don't want to hide away or sort of try and stop people working out. I enjoy being dyslexic.
Well, the superpower of dyslexia is, of course, the planning. Is that you have this ability to map things in your head. Whether that was when I was at school doing technical drawing, I was doing isometric views with no difficulty compared to the rest of the class. So you can manipulate an object in your head much more readily than somebody else. You can find a location much more readily. Once you've been to one place, as a dyslexic, regardless of whether it was a dark and stormy night, you'll always know your way back there, because you can map that in your head far better. But it also means that you're better at planning as well, because you can put things into a spatial sense. You can use that idea of space and progress it forward as time. So you can use time as your fourth dimension, and you can manipulate that also. You can work out timelines and plan around things. And when you realise that your brain works in that way, using stuff like mind maps is invaluable. You can put things into mind maps and you can explore concepts and ideas in so much more depth that having that linear, normal brain means that you don't. I've never felt sad for being dyslexic. It's kind of made me who I am. And I think most dyslexics are in that same position. You know, this is an adversity that I have gone through. It has severely limited my education when I was younger, but it hasn't limited my drive. It hasn't stopped me from attaining what I want to do. You know, I'm a published author at this point. I've got 5 books in print just now, with another couple coming out in the next couple of years. I have basically faced that fear. You know, I have done what people would never expect a dyslexic to do.
Dyslexia is a terribly complicated thing for a young person to have. One of the biggest challenges we have is being sure that all of the teachers in Scotland could recognise a young boy or a young girl with dyslexia. In the past, I'm afraid the teacher training colleges haven't been alerting their new teachers to the reality that so many young people have dyslexia. Now, in dyslexia, you could count 500,000 people in Scotland suffering from dyslexia. And in my particular case, my school never recognised that I had a learning difficulty, or I call it a learning disability. And I was just told that I was stupid, dumb and thick. Now that doesn't help a young person at all. And the teachers simply didn't know that there was a thing called dyslexia. So the more we can get the educational authorities to recognise the scale of dyslexia and the damage that it does if it's not assisted and not handled properly is the most important thing.